And again, if you're just joining us, I want to introduce myself. My name is Karen Reynes. I'm the Executive Director for NAMI Central Texas. And it is my great joy to welcome you to today's Mind Matters at Home. I've known Deborah Rosales-Elkins for a number of years, and I'm such a big fan. She does everything with such passion and authenticity. And she is also a peer support specialist for integral care. And we really wanted to have an opportunity to focus on the needs of peers during this time. And so we invited Deborah to join us today. She's going to be offering some tips from a peer perspective on how to support your mental health during COVID-19. And I'm going to turn it over to her so she can introduce herself more fully. And I just want to thank her again for joining us today. Thank you.
Shout out to my fellow peers and recovery coaches. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us on the self-care discovery journey. You know, when I reflect on this challenging time, I remind myself that I am again given an opportunity to reinvent myself. As peers and recovery coaches, I see us as experts at this. We have had to reinvent ourselves as we have navigated mental health challenges and our addictions in our lives. You know, I have some tried and true approaches that work for me that may not work for you. So please take what works and leave the rest. I really do believe information is power. And the more choices we have, the better job we can do to create our own self-care plans. As people who step into the arena every day and own our experiences to use them for good, to help others, we are not strangers to chaos and change. But when it comes to jumping in to learn video chatting or having meetups on the phone, we step up to the challenge. We find humor in the awkwardness of technical difficulties, or talking with our mic muted, yikes. But it is my privilege to honor each and every one of you for the important work that we continue to do. I'm eager to hear your ideas about how you are creating care for yourself, and to also share how we can ask others to support us during this point in time in history. So I went ahead and put together some slides on some tried and true approaches that work for me. I do think that showing love for ourselves can really be expressed by taking care of ourselves. There's a wonderful quote that I want to share with you that I think encompasses self-care and that I found online that really resonated. And it is, self-care is an attitude that says, I am responsible for myself. This really resonated with me because I think as I've gone through my journey to find resilience and recovery with mental health challenges, that one thing that I really had to take seriously was that I need to take responsibility for finding what works for me and be an active participant. And that is something I really try to work with clients too, because it's an important part to move us forward. One of the things that I like to do is look at different cultures and trying to find ideas and ways that different parts of the world handle sadness and depression. And I came across this beautiful slide of these children from a tribe who have a shaman that they go to with their problems. And what was so lovely that in this indigenous culture, when the shaman comes upon someone who's depressed, she or he will often ask, when did you stop dancing, engaging in art, drumming, doing music, or just sitting in meditative silence? I paraphrase, of course, But this was very meaningful to me, as these are approaches that I think have a huge impact on my own mental health and how we can move forward. Well, there are so many approaches that I love to use as I have navigated this. And just a little bit about me, as Karen mentioned, I have been honored to be a peer at the Mood Treatment Center at Integral Care. But what is so cutting edge about the program that I get to be a part of is that we are in partnership with Dell Medical School that also has a bipolar clinic on their campus. And I am their peer as well. And one of the nice things about this is that it's a very cutting edge approach where psychiatrists, psychologists, clinical social workers, pharmacists, we all come together to staff clients so that we are giving different perspectives on what we see might be helpful. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. But one of the benefits I get is I get to go sit in on grand rounds where cutting edge research is happening around mental health. And I learned so many wonderful things. But one thing that I came across that has been very impactful for me is a psychoneuroimmunology. And it's a very fancy word, and it means something very simple. It's the study of the connection between the mind and the immune system. The basic concept is that the mind and body are inseparable, which I think that's something that a lot of us know. So in delving more into this research, I found that what we feed our mind and thought can really affect our whole body. And so for me, it has begun a journey for several years where I really try to immerse myself into all things positive. Now, does it mean that I don't get sad or get sucked into some negativity? Oh gosh, yes, I do. But I always try to return, especially when I'm having a hard time, in delving into things that inspire me and feed my mind, basically positive thought. So I have three top authors, books that have been really helpful to me that I wanted to share. I know many peers and recovery coaches out there are familiar with Brené Brown's work. She is a shame and vulnerability researcher. She has been studying that for 20 years. She has many top-selling books and videos. And her work has been so transformative for me. I think one thing that has been really impactful is that her research has given me words to feelings I've had and weren't able to express. So that's powerful. But I'm going to share with you one thing that has really been impactful. She has been studying hundreds of people. And one thing she found was this simple sentence that really resilient people had in common. And it was a version for different people, but it was basically the same sentence. And I'm going to tell you what it is. That sentence is, the story I'm telling myself right now. And this has really had a positive impact for me. She shares a story where her husband, who's a pediatrician, she had been working all day on one of her books at the kitchen table, and he came in and he was hungry, and he opened the kitchen door and he looked in there and he said, there is not one piece of deli meat in this whole house. And he closed the door. And Brené shares that she immediately took offense. She felt like he was saying she wasn't a good wife or a good mother. She wasn't keeping the refrigerator stocked. But she remembered this sentence, and so she turned to her husband and she said, Steve, the story I'm telling myself is that you're really disappointed in me, that I don't have the refrigerator stocked, and that you think I'm a bad mom. Her husband turned around and he said, Brené, who does the grocery shopping in this house? And Brené said, you do. And he said, okay, then if it's somebody's fault that we don't have deli meat, who would it be? And she said, You? And he said, exactly. He said, Brene, I'm just hungry. I had to work through lunch and I'm only hungry. That's it. It just made me laugh reading that story because I have started using this one sentence with my family, my children, my colleagues, and it breaks through so much minutia as I'm trying to navigate the world to find out truly how to communicate respectively and to move forward. So I wanted to share that with you. I hope I've enticed you to do some further research into her work and maybe read her books and check out her videos. Another go-to for me is Rachel Naomi Redmond. She wrote a book called Kitchen Table Wisdom. It's been around a while. I've reread it several times. I'm going to tell you a quick story from this that I hope resonates with you. This was considering a story. She's an oncologist and she has many health issues herself. So she really understands how difficult it can be for her patients. And there was this beautiful story that has stayed with me of a woman who was trying to take care of herself through chemo. She had cancer. And this woman had been very vibrant, very community oriented, loved to go out, loved to go to plays. So she adopted a new mantra for herself. And this has been so liberating for me. Her mantra was, embrace doing everything half-ass. Now, I hope that makes you laugh like it did me. So this wonderful woman, even though she was going through chemo, was nauseous, very weak, would go to a play, get dressed up, sit in the audience, and maybe only stay for 15 minutes, and then would go home. She would show up at parties, she would greet people, and then head to her car. She would start art projects and maybe stick with them for 10 minutes. But she was still showing up for life and being kind to herself when she wasn't doing it perfectly. That's a story that has really stayed with me. Last but not least, I wanted to share the fish philosophy. I got involved with the fish philosophy many, many years ago. It's been around. It's a very simple philosophy of how to walk through life. It's not anything you can teach. People have to choose to embrace it. But there's just 4 basic principles. Be there, be present with people, make their day, do something to make someone feel special, play, be playful as you walk through life. And last but not least, choose your attitude. What has been so impactful about this series of books and videos is that corporations all over the world have adopted this philosophy. If you've ever flown Southwest Airlines, they're champions at this. And I'm gonna take a step into the arena and share a little song with you that I heard on Southwest that made me laugh so hard. And this is fish. They've all been trained in the fish philosophy. It's about using these 4 principles and moving forward. So this song went something like this. I love you, you love us. We are quicker than a bus. We hope you enjoyed our hospitality. Marry one of us and you fly free. I hope that made you smile, because when you're sitting on a plane and you've been traveling and you have a stewardess or a flight attendant do something out of the ordinary, that's kind of encompassing what is fish. And I've seen hospitals adopt this philosophy. I've seen clinics do it, and it makes for a joyous environment where people can bring their whole selves to work. So thank you for indulging me while I shared some of my favorite inspiring books and stories with you. Next slide, please. One of the things, can we go to the next slide? Thank you so much. So, you know, I love research. And one of the things I came across was a wonderful PBS special that talked about how some scientists believe that our society has more people who are struggling with mental health challenges because we have lost the art of working with our hands. When you think about the difference of our current stage in history and many, many years ago when we used to have to farm our own food and work and build things, we're not doing that very much anymore. And that scientists were finding that this is a missing link that can help us be resilient and bring out our best selves. For me, it's art. I like to paint. And I wanted to show you this because I'm pretty proud of this little project I made of a table, a buffet table for barbecues outside. It flips down, but I love the imperfections of it. It's kind of a metaphor for who I am, but I'll never be perfect. But I think there's beauty in imperfection. If you're familiar with the Japanese culture in the broken bowl, they believe that when you break a bowl, you put it together with gold paint. It shows a sacredness of there's something very special when something breaks and you build it back up. This is a metaphor for something that's really important in my life and why I'm so honored to work as a peer. For people who've had to face challenges and rebuild themselves up are some of the most interesting, sensitive, deeply wonderful people in this world. And I learned so much from them. Next slide, please. Reiki energy healing. So I don't know if any of you out there have had the opportunity to read the book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's on the New York Times bestseller list, written by a doctor, a psychiatrist in Boston. He is of Dutch heritage, Bessel van der Kolk. This book is fascinating. As a matter of fact, I just read it this week. And one of his philosophies, and that he's found and has research to back up, is that talk therapy and medication are all very important components, can be for most people who are struggling with mental health challenges, but also the importance of body work in conjunction can have huge advances in helping someone recover. And that really resonated with me because I think that's been a big part of my recovery. So I want to share with you about Reiki energy healing. It's one of many, many things you can do to enhance body work into your life. I'm a Reiki master. When I first heard of Reiki, I was a trainer for a national training organization on staff development. And I had this boss that I really loved and admired. And she was a Reiki master. And I thought the thing about, let me tell you what Reiki is for those of you who may not know. Reiki is very much like you go to a practitioner, you lie on a massage table, just like if you're about to get a massage, only the practitioner never touches you. But you can feel heat radiating from their hands as they work on different parts of your body. And I thought that sounded a little bit strange, and I didn't really believe it could work. But this was somebody I really admired, and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. And I went and had a session, and I had my eyes closed, and I could tell where the practitioner was working on me from the intense heat coming from their hands. And afterwards, I remember thinking, I've never been this relaxed in my entire life. I was like Jello. So I was sold. I spent several years becoming a master myself, and I only use it on myself. It has been transforming. I think of it as a meditative, spiritual thing for myself. I can do it to calm myself down in any situation. Nobody can see that I'm doing it. And it has been so grounding for me. Now, that may not be for everybody. And body work can encompass so many things: yoga, running, bicycling, something to work out the stress, and especially if you've had trauma in your life. From the book, the Body Keeps the Score, he thinks that body work is very, very helpful for people who've had a lot of trauma. And so Qigong, Tai Chi, for kids, martial arts have been really, really good. And so things like that are something to explore and see if it would be a good fit for you. Next slide, please. So several years ago, I moved to Minnesota with my husband. He got a job he couldn't refuse, and it was a wonderful time for me because it was the first time in my life I didn't have to work. He and I have raised 5 wonderful, resilient children. And when I was in Minnesota, I got to go and work on my master's, which was such a gift. I interned at this wonderful place because in Minnesota, they are far more advanced than unfortunately we are here in Texas on holistic health practices. And I got to intern at a place called Pathways. And this was an interesting place because it was a resource crisis center for people facing life-threatening illnesses. And let me tell you something. You want to learn how to live? Be around people who know that they don't have very long to live. You can learn some wonderful things. This particular resource had hundreds of classes free of charge for the community for people who were sick to live the best life they could possibly live with the time they had left. They had laughing yoga classes, acupuncture, REIKI, massage therapy, aromatherapy, so many things to choose from. And all the practitioners in the community donated their time. It's an amazing place. One of the things I got to engage in was singing bowl therapy. You don't have to go and spend a lot of money to find this. You can go to YouTube and put in singing bowl therapy. One of my favorites is a 3-hour session with singing bowls from Tibet and water with waterfalls in the middle, in the background. And it is so calming. I put it on sometimes when I'm doing paperwork, trying to, get through a hectic day, and it immediately makes me feel better. So when I used to do it in Minnesota, there would be 60 people in an auditorium, and we would lay there for an hour while practitioners played these bowls, and the vibrations, well, it felt like a deep tissue massage when they were done. So something that I just wanted to share, take our leave, but I've found it to be very therapeutic. Next slide, please. Aromatherapy, I don't think I have to say a lot about this. Our moods can be affected by smells. They can bring back memories, good or bad. I don't think you have to go and invest in expensive oils, which is nice if you can. I think you can, put some cinnamon and orange peel on the stove with water. You could bake bread. If you ever walked into a home and it smells so delicious and just feels so calming, those things can affect our mood. And so this is something that as we're quarantining, that you can just kind of bake or do something that can make the whole house smell delicious and wonderful and just give you that feeling of homeliness, that it's warmth. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just touch base on some of the tools we're taught as peers and recovery coaches. Some of us have had access to RAP, which is a wellness recovery action plan. It's something that some of us are trained in to work with clients, but sometimes we forget the tools we use to help our clients can be wonderful tools for ourselves. So I wanted to remind you that online are complete little kits on how to incorporate RAP. And I think it's a beautiful tool for myself. One of the things that have come out of it for me is I have made myself a little shoebox that I've decorated, and I've put pictures in there of things that bring me joy, whether it be doing art, engaging in music or drumming, remembering my REIKI, because when I get depressed or down, I can forget all of these things that I find joyous. And so I invite you to maybe think of making something that you can grab when you need a lift that can remind you of those activities that bring us joy. Of course, the Wellness Toolbox talks about other things. I won't read those off, but we know about diet and sleep and all of those wonderful things that can help keep us real and keep us happy. Next slide. So, with hope and personal responsibility, education, I think information is power. We self-advocate for ourselves and others. It is important in closing that we remember that it's also possible for us to ask for the support we need as we move forward. And so that is something that I think is worth taking time to formally sit down and think and ponder, what does support look like to me? Or what does help look like to me? So I invite you to consider taking time to create your own self-care plan so that you can live the resilient life that you deserve. And one more slide. And here is my mantra. Today, I will live in the moment unless the moment becomes unpleasant, in which case I'll take a nap. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I'm going to hand it back to Karen. And we can go over some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. That was great. I'm a huge Brene Brown fan myself, so I love that particular shout out. So this is an opportunity for folks to ask any questions they might have. And so again, if you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box, so you can drop any questions that you have for Deborah in there. Because I don't think we had any. Oh, it looks like we had a couple of questions, but Christina took care of answering those. I forgot to mention that we've got Christina Schneider with us, who's making sure all the technology works as well. So any questions or feedback that anyone has on any of the things that Deborah shared with us today? So I did notice that someone asked about if we'd have access to the slides later. What I will tell you is that we are making sure that we make the recording of this particular webinar available, and it'll be on our website, so you'll be able to see the slides there. So I know for sure we're going to do that. But somebody asked if maybe that you had a particular singing bowls YouTube that you like. Is there anything in particular that you search for, someone that provides that you might share, Deborah?
Yes, absolutely. So there is, if you put in at YouTube, singing bowl Tibetan singing bowl, there's a 3-hour that is a favorite of mine that also combines water and singing bowl therapy. And I just find it so very, very relaxing. So thank you for that great question. I hope you enjoy it too.
Okay, great. I'm putting that in, and then I would bet that Christina's pretty good about that. She's probably going to search for an actual link that she can drop in there as well. Okay, so here's a great question, which I actually had a question about as well, because I'm in that role. What can family or caregivers do to really help support their loved one during this time? You offered a lot of great ideas for people who are for themselves, but then what about those of us that support or provide care to someone, or we just love someone? How do we provide that kind of support?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question and having the insight to ask it. It's such an important role. Now, I think when I look back on that, that has been such a journey for me because I didn't know how to ask for help and had to learn that. But the most important thing would probably be to listen. I often need someone to be my sounding board. And I try to be very respectful with my family and friends. But I also try to ask for what I need. Sometimes I just want someone to listen. I'm not looking for anyone's opinion. I'm not looking for you to answer or solve it for me. I need someone to listen.
Mm.
And also, and so as a caregiver, it might be a great question to ask your loved one. Would you like me to just listen, or would you like me to share some of my thoughts? Because I can do either one, because I'm here for you. And I think that for me is so very, very important. I also, gosh, especially when I'm not feeling good, I want to be included.
Mm.
I think of, have you ever, if you're familiar with Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore, there's been memes online about
Sure.
Eeyore's the depressed one,
Right.
but his friends never leave him behind. They ask him to go on adventures. And here's the best one. They never ask him to change who he
Mm.
is. And that is so beautiful, because when I'm stuck, when I'm not feeling up to living life to the fullest, I really need that tender understanding. And then also, you know, if you invite me out, it may shift for me. I may not want to, and I hope you'll respect that too if I don't want to engage. But don't think, oh, she's feeling bad, I don't think I'll ask her to join in. I think that we want to be included and checked on. But here's something else I want to share, Karen, and whoever asked this question, is that one of the things I had to do was teach my family and my loved ones what help looked like to me. And I think that's a great conversation to have as a family or the person that you care about, to help kind of brainstorm what kind of things that looks like. One of the things is language is very important to me. I'm a woman who lives with a bipolar diagnosis, but I am not bipolar. I'm a person living with a mental health challenge. Language is, I'm very sensitive to language. It would not be helpful to walk up to me and say, huh, you seeming a little manic today, or you seeming bipolar. That's something I've had to teach those who love me. Just that what I'd rather they say is, hey, we've had a lot of fun today. You're just talking a mile a minute and have so much going on. And what we know is that maybe later on you're not going to be feeling so well. How can we plan for that? That I can hear. And so teaching each other, teaching your loved ones how to support you is important. But your loved one, the caregiver, can also initiate asking the question, gosh, what does help look like to you?
Wow, Deborah, that was a answer just loaded with so much great information. I love really where you started, because I think so often those of us who love and care for someone, I think we have this tendency to want to put on our cape and fix it. You know, we sort of come at it from that mode. And that's not really collaborative. And I think some of that comes from a good place. I think a lot of times we see our loved ones and we feel like they're vulnerable and we want to protect them.
Oh,
But we forget, you know, but you made but part of that is, how do we engage in a way that's really collaborative? So I love the things that you said, because there were a lot of the things that we talk about at NAMI with folks, which is using I language, you know, and then really asking, so that we're not making assumptions about what somebody wants or needs, but we're really asking, how can I be of help? And what are the things that I can do? And I just love that, even just the simple things about not making assumptions. But I also loved in particular that image of of Tigger and Eeyore and all of that, because I think so much of that is about, sometimes it's okay to just be with people when they're in whatever place that they're in, and creating that space to just be with people. And so that was such a great reminder, I think, for me, in my role as a family member, to remember the power of that, of just creating that space to be with someone, was
Karen,
really
thank
helpful.
you. Thank you for saying that. If I may add one more thing that has been huge for me, is permission to retreat. Again, this is something I had to teach my family. I can tell you that there has been more than one special holiday in my life where I'll get up, and you know, as women, well, all of us, we try to create something very nice for our families, cooking all day, and then it comes time to serve the meal, and I'm overwhelmed. And luckily, I can turn to my family and say, I love you, please eat without me, I need to retreat, and I'm respected for that. It's not, oh, push through, or we don't want to eat without you, or you're ruining Christmas. Never have I gotten that. And I think, and I hope I've modeled for my children that they can step up and say the same thing and go and retreat when they need to.
Wow.
It can be a two-way street.
Yeah, I love that. Well, because you make a valid point, we all need that sometimes. And I think fundamentally what I hear in that is really about creating opportunities to have good communication and to create, again, safe space for people naming what they need. And that's true for all of us, that we need to be able to do that. And and many times just setting that as an example of what that looks like can be really beneficial to the whole family system, right? Because we all learn that sometimes it's okay to say, I just need to be alone right now, or that's not something I really want to do today, and that no one gets their feelings hurt because of that. But that takes some work and really creating that communication, but those are great reminders. Okay, a couple of other questions. One, I think, is a really important question, which is, how do I know when I might need to get help from a professional?
Gosh, what a wonderful question. So unique to each and every one of us. But you know, if there's any question, if you're thinking, do I need help? I say go and get the help. That's my gauge. I mean, who in the world can't benefit from going and talking to a person who's objective about something that we're dealing with? So, and you know, that's easy for me to say. There are many barriers, financial barriers, things like that. But it could be finding someone, a trusted friend, to help you gauge and look at what you're dealing with and whether or not more help is needed. But I would come down on the side of move forward with it if you have any question that you may need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to make note, someone asked about, it would be awesome if we could find a template on how to teach our family these important conversation starters. So I just want to make a plug for the Families Together, that 3-session online class that I mentioned that you can find on our website. One of the pieces that we cover in that class is about communicating with our loved ones. So if you visit our website and just go to the section on family members, you'll find that class will pop up. Also, a number of people have asked about, can you talk about how you became a REIKI master? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
REIKI.
Yes. I knew I was. REIKI master. So we had a number of folks that were really interested in that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. So I was living in Minnesota at the time, and there are practitioners who teach it. Austin is so innovative that I'm sure that there's practitioners that offer a teaching. But let me be honest with you. I spent quite a bit of money becoming a REIKI master. When I look back, I could have gone on YouTube and gotten a really good training on it. It's just about, you know, being, how much are you willing to practice? There are so many good things online that, if nothing else, can get your feet wet to see if it's a good match for you. So try YouTube first, but you just need to do a little research because REIKI classes can you know, are available in different places.
But what I'm hearing is it's like a certification program. So there is some investment that you make in officially becoming a certified master. But I think that's a great idea. Watching some of those YouTube videos and sort of getting a feel for, as you point out, is this something that would really be helpful to me? I decided
not to practice it. I don't work on people, so I really did need to go that route.
Yeah. So here's a really great question that came through on our chat. in regards to how do you work with a supervisor who doesn't understand your mental illness and is just constantly putting more work and more stress into the day? Any suggestions on that?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, let me acknowledge how difficult I think that is, and what a great question. So what I have found over the years is the importance of boundaries. You know, when we're out there working, trying to support ourselves, we can really think about how we need to work, right? And so I can think of jobs where I was in a position where I really needed to work. I'm not that there now, so I can have more boundaries. But you know, even if you're in a situation where you need the job, I think we can model what it looks like to be courteous and to ask for what we need in a compassionate, loving way. And I honestly think that people respect when people are clear on what their boundaries. Let's say someone doesn't talk respectfully to you. You don't have to get ugly. You don't have to get mad. But you can say, I would appreciate if you not talk to me in that tone because it makes me feel bad. Or perhaps I have this mental health challenges. We could sit down and have coffee and I could share a little bit about what would be helpful to me. Now, I'm not guaranteeing any of that would be helpful, but you're also protected under certain rights as an employee of any company. And if things, I would certainly always try to talk first to the person you're having trouble with. I always think that's best, and to be very clear on what you're needing and be very kind. But if that doesn't work, human resources is there for a reason. And we have protections and everyone deserves to be treated in a compassionate, kind way. So I hope that things get better for you. Yeah. But setting your boundaries is a really important aspect to share with people.
Thank you. A couple more questions. So the next one asks if this person wonders if you would ever consider volunteering to talk to women who are in the county jail someday.
I would love it.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
You bet.
Okay. So is there, if someone wanted to schedule that with you, to try to set that up with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Certainly. I can share my email. Okay. Should I do that now, or can Christina send that out?
Christina can send that out. She's got that since she's been communicating with you, so she can drop that into the chat.
Yes, absolutely.
For, I think it was Jennifer that was asking about that. So we'll let Christina do that. And so someone was going back to the whole conversation about Reiki, was clearly interested in that, and was wondering if you were aware of anyone in the Austin area that you would recommend to actually get Reiki.
Oh my gosh, anyone you would? Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm not, since I didn't get it here, but I have heard from people that there are some good Reiki practitioners. And I'll tell you what, if you email me, I'd be happy to reach out to some of my friends who do a lot of holistic health and see if I can come up with a name for you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Yes. Any other questions that anyone has? I think we got them all because we just covered the one about Reiki. I'm looking through the chat to make sure we didn't miss any there. A big thanks to, there was a number of folks that did a search and dropped some of those YouTube video links into the chat.
Oh, nice.
So clearly they were fairly easy to find. I want to remind people again that there will be a recording of this Zoom that will be on our website. So that's NAMICentralTX.org. And if you just click on the Mind Matters page, all of the recordings are stored there. Someone said, boy, had I known we would cover how family can support you, I would have asked my mom to listen. So now that person can share that with their mom. It's usually up within about a couple of days or so. We usually post it. Let's see, we covered somebody asked about the conversation starters. We answered that. We asked the question about the supervisors. Okay, here's a question. When or what do you deal with? Oh, okay, somebody's sort of responding to that, never mind. Okay. Somebody just mentions that something that has helped them is to listen to Abraham Hicks on YouTube. Are you familiar with the law of attraction?
No, thank you. I love learning new things. Abraham Hicks, he said?
Hicks, so Hicks.
Thank you for sharing that.
Deborah, so is that your Gmail address that you are okay
Yes.
with sharing? Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to drop that for anyone who's interested in following up with the folks that asked about that. I just dropped Deborah's email address for those of you that had questions about the Reiki. Any other questions? We're almost up on the hour, but we've got a couple more minutes, so I don't want to rush anyone. I was looking to see if there was any other questions that maybe I had missed that had popped up.
Well, I just wanted to say how very, very proud I am to be part of the peer and recovery coach community. I'm so very proud of my colleagues. You are doing such essential work right now. And you know, there's nothing like a peer perspective, having someone by your side who has walked the journey before you. And so kudos to all of you. And thank you for what you're doing.
And a big thanks to you, because certainly, you know, we as an organization certainly know how important the peer support piece is. And so we're so grateful for peer support specialists like you who are in our community and do that important piece of providing this kind of insight and direction and guidance and help, and that partnering with people as they're navigating this. Because as we know, again, there's nothing quite as powerful as that opportunity to have that peer perspective, because it's I get it, I know, because I've been here. And so we really do appreciate you, and you've provided some great insight and I think some great ideas and tools for people to reach into. And we're seeing a whole lot of folks in the chat box just expressing their thanks for that. We had somebody else ask about if you'd consider talking to a church group as well. And I'm going to direct them to go ahead and just, again, Deborah's email address has been dropped in there in that chat box. So that's drelkins9@gmail.com. So shoot Deborah an email if you want to ask her any more information about. Clearly, folks must have loved what you had to say, because they'd love to have other people in their lives hear what you are having to share. So we just want to thank you again for your time today, Deborah, and for all of your insights and help. It's always such a joy to hear you speak. It was a great webinar, I think a great hour of insights. We want to thank all of you that joined us today for today's Mind Matters at Home. And we look forward to seeing you back next week when we talk about isolation with Age of Central Texas. While there will be a focus particularly on those who are older, I think the topic in general, we're going to hear all kinds of great ideas for supporting folks who are in isolation, regardless of their age. So we encourage you to join us. And then if you had a great experience with this webinar, make sure that you're sharing it with other folks who may benefit, because we know in this time when so many of us are navigating the challenges of isolation and uncertainty, it's great to have this kind of free insight and perspectives from all kinds of professionals and advocates and peers from our community. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you back next week, Thursday, May 7th at 11 a.m. when we're going to be covering Connecting Safely, How to Overcome Loneliness While Distancing with Annette Jupa of Age of Central Texas. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you again, Deborah. You were a great presenter.
Thank you.